And then on the 21st, we have Bashley Bones. And on the 22nd, we have Landon Hale. Right, I think we're done putting ourselves over, no?
We're never done getting ourselves over. Who are we kidding?
Right. Um, well, it is a great day for us because we're wrestling with the news. And for anybody that doesn't know what the structure of our show is going to be, we're going to be doing the news, Wrestle Kingdom 19, Wrestle Dynasty, and Monday Night Raw debut on Netflix. So a lot of content for the show, so strap in. Um, a big news piece article that came out this week, ironically enough, on the January 6th Raw, was that the Royal Rumble 2026 will be in Saudi Arabia. What the actual fuck?
Okay. I told you. I, what did I say? Usually that news don't come out of its ass.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, that just doesn't pop out of nowhere. Um, that's, it's, it's interesting in the sense that I guess they're testing this international market. I already told you, like, USA, man, when they saw the receptions and the gates that they got for these overseas pay-per-views, I was like, yep, it's about to change. I didn't think it was going to be the big four not being in the States changing, but shit.
Yeah.
Oh, and behold, WWE said, hold my beer, bitch. Yeah, but it's interesting. I already got texts from people who are like, hey, are we going? Which, I mean, that would be cool. I mean, the Royal Rumble and overseas.
Um, you know,
And I guess, and I think I think they're breaking two birds with a stone because they always feel like they're obligated to go, and they're like, if I'm gonna get it out the way, get it out the way at the beginning of the year.
right. I kind of get that, but I kind of feel like this wasn't because the international shows were doing so well. This was Saudi saying we want something, give us something. And if you, I know, I mean we all watch the PLEs, but the PLEs they're not exactly in Saudi Arabia, they're not exactly popping off, if I'm being honest. I mean, like, the crowds aren't necessarily France or Germany. I mean, they're it's only because they
Modest at best. I mean, I get it. Keep going.
no, I'm just saying it's just because Saudi Arabia the the government body wants them. And I mean, yeah, the crowd likes them, but they're not giving them the reactions that the other places have been giving them. And I mean, you get Saudi Arabia gets them like two, maybe three times a year, so they are a little bit more spoiled than other places in the world at this place.
I I completely agree to an extent because the reason I say agree to an extent is simply because they have a crowd. The problem is that the culture is way different than a France, a Germany, so on and so forth. Like prime example, if you're going over there, more than likely you're not drinking at the event because drinking is not really a thing that's over there in the Middle East, right?
Right.
Um, um, it's more, how can I say it without trying to offend people? They're more rooted in their cult, and not trying to say, they're more rooted in the culture of their religion than most countries are, right?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest factor. Plus they have the money to do it. I mean, I don't think they must have put up some cash for it. And that kind of is interesting because now that goes, okay, if they're getting it next year, then is King and Queen of the Ring still? Because keep in mind, they went twice last year.
Yes.
And
For King of the Ring and Crown
King,
Jewel.
yep. So it's like, okay, is that taking place instead of Crown Jewel? Is that taking place instead of King and Queen of the Ring? Right?
Right.
And the only way we'll know that is the way that they lay out that we won't know that until we get to that bridge in 2026. Uh, unless that is leaning to me, London getting a Mania.
I think we were getting there anyway. Um,
I think we're getting there, but I think this is just one of those things where it's like, do Royal Rumble overseas, Mania in London, and then the next year they come right back to Nashville because Nashville's already slated.
because didn't they make a new arena?
Yeah, the new arena is in the process, so they're slated. They already been slated, so they're slated when that's done. So it gives them 2 years to toy around with everything else, and then Indianapolis still gets a SummerSlam and I think a SummerSlam and a Mania. I'm not sure. I know they're slated for one or two more of those pay-per-views.
And
Minnesota get their 2 night. Jersey got their. See, that's the other thing too. 2026. Minnesota gets their 2 nighter. Jersey gets theirs this year. Yeah, it's gonna be nuts. And it's like you're trying to fill in the dates on these things, and some of these things have already been planned, and then you got to factor in the other deals that they got with them. So yeah, but Saudi Arabia for the Rumble, man, that's gonna be the most sober Royal Rumble you ever been to. Boy, I hope you get your drinking done before, cause boy, you ain't going nowhere in that thing. Drunk. When I say get drunk off Capri Suns, you might be getting drunk off Capri Suns in that joint.
I don't. They could have did something better, and I think that it already seems like a lot of negative presses came out of them announcing it in Saudi Arabia. But
Well,
obviously,
if you look at what the tickets are doing for Indianapolis, it's like I'm looking like because no one's coming to Indianapolis in February. Like that's a bitch. It's a bitch. Like you asking to go to Naptown in February? That's cold as fuck.
you know, I I think that they should have kept the international PLEs, I should say, at the ones that aren't the big four. But I don't. And if you were going to do it somewhere, an international big four, I don't think Saudi Arabia was the place to do it. That's just my opinion.
I mean, it shocked the shit out of me, but I already saw it coming. It was like,
Yeah, but I mean, the
uh,
one thing about the PLEs is a lot of people do travel international, but I don't. I'm not hearing like a lot of people are clamoring or go to Saudi Arabia. You know what I mean?
because like I said, it is a very strict country. That country's strict as shit.
Right. Not to mention
So
it
it's
is
not
in the
as
middle of a well, it's not in the middle, but it's right next to where a major war is going on as well. So
I mean, you can factor that in. I just look at it from the standpoint of that is not a destination where it's as seamless to be in. right? Like Japan seamless. Here to Japan seamless. Here to Europe seamless. Hell, even here to certain places, major cities seamless. That's not seamless. It's seamless in travel, not seamless in what's that word I'm looking for? Culture.
Right.
Because you just can't walk around and drink all day, or you can't. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's a lot of things that are, so, I mean, it's just getting used to that. And once you get used to that, you'll be okay. But
And
it would be nice to see what it's about. Get one of them little big ass, what's those called? Those little big ass front row seats, because they front row seats are like couches. So
they
shit.
was, but I don't think they are anymore. I mean, for the first
Oh,
time it
god
was.
damn it. I would love to be in one of them hoes.
Okay, Kaliko, if you buy
But once
front
again,
row,
can't get bottle service.
you're not even getting a sofa with your ticket. You can't take that home with you. You do realize that.
I mean, who said well, I can't, because if I take it, they'll chop my arm off, and I ain't trying. You see what I'm saying? Like, I know the rules. Fuck that. Get my, what's it, not Farsi. Yeah, get my Farsi on. Shit, get my Farsi, Duolingo on. That's good.
With that, Royal Rumble will be in Saudi Arabia in 2026. Uh, they also announced SummerSlam and Survivor Series. SummerSlam will be taking place in Russia, and Survivor Series will be taking place in North Korea. So, good for those
Boy,
people.
they are not touching North Korea with a fucking pole, but that's all. Boy, nah, hell no. You ain't going over there. Yeah.
As Vince McMahon would often say, anything could happen in the WWE.
Oh, speaking of which, he got off on charges.
Yeah, Vince McMahon slipping out of things that he committed or may have not committed, depending on who you
Yeah,
ask.
slip. You know, right? Like slipping out of darkness, slipping out of dark.
Well, speaking of slipping out of darkness, NXT drew their highest numbers since 2019, and the biggest crowd they drew for the CW as well. That show featured The Rock on it. Not to mention just a straight up banger of a card as well. So, congratulations to them.
Yeah, four words: women's division matches shown. Because man, that's basically what it was.
Yeah. Um, I I bought a ticket for Oberfemi. I went because of Lola Vice.
Really?
Yes.
Not the core?
Vakor came out. I forgot who was in the match, and I was like, okay, I'll go for Vakor,
Lola Vice.
and then Lola Vice came out, and I was like, fuck it, yeah, Lola, I'm going with Lola. Yeah. Um.
I mean, it's some changing going around now.
What?
Yeah, some changing going around there in NXT.
I mean, big changes. Oba is now the NXT champion, and Julia is the women's champion. Took.
And if you don't think Vicorg about to beat that ass, you got another thing coming.
I mean, why would why would they put the belt on Julia just to drop it to Vakor, right afterwards?
Oh no! Vicor's the number one contender for the other title.
Okay, yes, you're right. Yeah,
She's the number one contender for the Women's North American Championship.
that's right. So, yeah. Um, I mean, obviously they got a little bit boost with The Rock being on the show, but do you see actually maybe maintaining some of this audience that they got. I mean, they packed it with enough cake for years, I'd say.
As long as they keep packing it with cake, people will keep coming to the bakery shop.
This is I agree with this. Um, Speaking of if there was ever such a thing, too much cake. SmackDown was is 3 hours now, as we all know. Um, but it's only going to be for 6 months. Um, for starting, I believe in June, if I'm not mistaken. It's gonna go back to 2 hours. Um, I'm kind of my head is kind of all jumbled and mixed up with all of these changes and differences. So, okay, so the last couple of months, I get it. Transition period. Raw went to 2 hours because they didn't have a home. SmackDown was on USA. NXT transitioned um, to
CW.
CW. After out of freaking nowhere, SmackDown decided to be 3 hours. Okay, whatever. But now they're saying, SmackDown's going to be 2 hours in 6 months, and I don't, I don't necessarily like that. I like everything to kind of be status quo, and it just kind of feels like every 6 months to a year, things are transitioning and changing with WWE. There needs to be, some constant and not all these variables. You know what I mean?
Do you really? I can give you the backstory. So, what it sounds like was okay when Raw was doing the deal when Raw was doing the deal with USA. That's when they did the 3 hours. But then they had went to SmackDown for Fox. But then remember that was 2 hours. But then they left Fox, went back to USA, and then that's when it became 2 hours. But keep in mind, USA still got a goddamn contract that was including Raw that was for 3 hours up until they went to Netflix. So when they went to Netflix, the Raw was like, okay, we're gonna go there, but then we'll fulfill the 3 hour block from Raw with SmackDown. So now SmackDown is 3 hours until they try to renew the contract with Peacock and USA on that shit. Does that make sense?
In a very convoluted way. Yes.
Because honestly, that's basically what it was. They gave that third hour to SmackDown to circumvent losing you know what I'm saying, the
Yeah.
3 hours of Raw,
No,
and
I
then
understood.
there until they can renegotiate a deal.
It. I really hope that after June we don't have to hear about this show is going to 2 hours, this show is going to 3 hours, this show is going to
Well,
this channel. I just
well,
like
keep
a
in
little
mind,
consistency.
think,
But I get
I
what you
think,
mean.
well, other than Netflix, all these other shows were under one parent channel umbrella. It wasn't, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it wasn't like, you know what I mean? It was, it, it wasn't, they did this. And they did this once they became, partners with TKO because say what you will, UFC is kind of simple. You either got ESPN or you got the UFC channel overseas. Here, it's like, well, in the States, you got this, but then overseas, you got the network, and da, da, da. And you know what I'm saying? And I get that they're doing it to try to make a profit, but it's increasing friction to access it. Now, Netflix, them being on Netflix, that was the easiest, most frictionless transition of it all, due to the fact that everyone can watch it in real time now. But now with them trying to figure out the Peacock part with the USA part with the SmackDown part, Peacock, because do we know if Peacock is still doing PLEs?
That's a good question. I imagine that they're
Do,
doing at least Royal Rumble
because I'm hearing that. I mean, I think Netflix, you can still access the library.
on Netflix. No, on Peacock. Yeah.
Really? See, so that's what I'm saying. So it's like they're serving. Technically, they went from serving two masters to serving roughly like four or five, because they got to serve Netflix, and then they got to serve NBC Universal, which owns all those channels. Then they got to serve TKO to make sure that they're making a profit. Then they got to serve UFC, because technically they're kind of trying to do these partner deals where it's like if UFC has a fight and WWE's in the same building, just do one big weekend package and shit. So that's something that they tested in Anaheim last year. So it's just a lot of moving parts to try to be ahead of the curve and things, and it's just making everything as confusing as college football this year. So it's very confusing.
Well, something that also feels confusing as well is Chris Charlton, the English commentator for New Japan Pro Wrestling, is indefinitely suspended for comments he made about Tony Khan during the Kenny Omega Gabriel Kidd match. Um, I know AEW has nothing to do with New Japan, but it kind of seems, pretty severe that they indefinitely suspended him just for,
Well,
comments.
they kind of do though. See, that's the problem. AEW kind of do, because they're lending them wrestlers.
I mean, and we'll talk about New Japan in a bit, but they don't necessarily need to be beholden of AEW. I mean, at one point, New Japan was the big company that all the other wrestling companies brought.
We're siphoning from.
Yeah, and I mean, basically, and I mean that's basically what Chris was talking about. Tony Khan is trying to make success on things that New Japan already made famous, and that he was a money mark, and maybe the money mark comment was a little over the line, but I mean, stop him when he's telling lies. You know what I mean?
It's not about that he's telling lies. It's just the fact that if Kenny Omega, if you didn't have the Bucks and Perry, you see, if all these people weren't working with them, because the thing is, New Japan is shit behind closed doors, but they ain't trying to ruffle the boat, if you will.
Yeah, I get that.
They're just trying to do business as what's best for them as a company. You know what I mean? So I get it. I get it. It's just more like New Japan doesn't want to look that way as a company.
No, I get it. But hopefully, Chris will be back in the commentary booth. Um, Honestly, I don't think that they even listen to the American broadcasters. But hey, I digress.
I mean, they pay attention to all that shit.
Well, I mean, if WWE is anything to, if you have anything to go by, WWE doesn't know what their Spanish announcers are saying.
Let's not go there. I mean, but they know where the table is, and that's all.
Alright, I think that will conclude our coverage of the news. And now a quick word from our sponsors.
Hey folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show, support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.